Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another and also our final episode this season of the PNY PRO Podcast. I am Bianca Sasso, and I am here with my co-host from our whole season, all 3 seasons, Jerome Nelson. Hello, Jerome.
Yeah, how's it going?
Good. Getting ready to wrap up this season.
Yeah, I'm really excited. This is, again, our 3rd season. We've been through a lot of different episodes. We've run through many different topics, ranging from data center conversations to professional visualization and AI across the board. And now we're finally here, episode 30.
Episode 30. It's crazy. Episode 30 of PNY's 40th year.
Yeah. It's actually crazy because I know that we were talking before about getting some internal conversations of having some people, either some directors or just hearing from the people at PNY what's kind of going on internally behind the scenes. Again, this is our 40th year, so a lot internally has been going on when it comes to planning preparation for, of course, new products that we're constantly pushing out along every single side.
Yeah, 40 years of PNY, 30th episode of the PNY Pro Podcast, Season 3. I just joined the beginning of this season, but it was great. I mean, I only have the one experience of the one season, but it's been absolutely wonderful. We had so many cool guests, whether it be from our partners like Data Monsters or NVIDIA themselves. We had so many cool people, awesome, expert conversations, really cool topics that we were able to go through with them. And yeah, it was a jam-packed season, I feel like.
Yeah, it really has been. So Bianca, I mean, you've joined, but again, it feels like you've been here forever in a funny way. So what are some cool experiences that you've had, especially even when it came to like GTC and, currently we're actually prepping for GTC DC.
Yeah.
When it comes to events, how have you been enjoying that?
Yeah, it's been great. I mean, it's kind of crazy because we're at the end of the season and it feels like it went by like that. But if we go back to the beginning of this season when we were kicking off, I was on the episode introducing myself at the beginning of the season, and then I blinked and I found myself in San Jose at GTC at, our big professional event for the year with NVIDIA, meeting a lot of partners, meeting a lot of people in the industry. So I feel like that was a really good culmination of, my experience here, and I feel like it's a good spot to pinpoint of where we are now at the end of the season, and now I'm in almost a year in at the company. So It's a really cool area to explore and talk about further, but it was really cool, A, getting to join PNY, B, getting to be on this podcast and get to do this with you guys every 3 weeks and talk about and learn about what's going on in the industry, whether it be from you or whether it be from when Derek Ellis joins us or other industry professionals. And then, I found myself at GTC and I'm recording an episode of the podcast at GTC. So it was just obviously like a once-in-a-lifetime, really amazing event. It was a really cool opportunity. And I feel like it kind of was a good representation of how it's been here of the only way you can learn it is if you do it. So for me, I was able to be there at the launch of this whole new series, which has kind of been the topic of this whole season of the new Blackwell family of products, on the ground zero of that launch, not only learning from, our sales representatives or other people in marketing talking to the products, but seeing Jensen up on a TV talking about the products and then having him stop by to use the products and everything. It was so crazy. And I feel like that has been a really good illustrator of how it's been for me throughout, my first year here, my first season of the podcast of you don't learn it until you do it.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's also a good segue of just everything we've been talking about this season, everything with the new launches, everything with the advancement in graphics technology, as well as just the technology industry in general, is we're really starting to get into that next era of people learning by doing and learning by seeing firsthand, if that makes sense.
Yeah, 100%. I think that this is such a great moment for you to join because, again, when you're starting off with GTC, it's kind of like there's no better place to start off because you're kind of going head first in, understanding that, hey, these are the different products that I'm currently being encompassed in, but also understanding that, hey, this is going to be the new tier of different products. Again, launching Blackwell, it was a huge thing, and where, as you said, Jensen standing at the forefront of the stage talking about it, but then you're also seeing the different advancements in AI, in where you're seeing all the cool things that AI kind of powers, whether it's, walking robots in front of you or a robot bartender. There's all these different cool things in where you're truly seeing what PNY has to offer at the booth, of course, but then what technology and what AI and what NVIDIA is offering as a whole too.
Yeah, and then I believe it was the episode right after GTC where we were joined by Stacy, and we kind of recapped the event, recapped the new products, and I feel like we really got to dive into what people are seeing emerge with these new products and what people are seeing emerge with this new forefront of AI, and the fact that it's actually getting in front of, quote unquote, everyday people.
Right.
Maybe not you and I that are ingrained in this and know what it is, but someone that's in a retail store, someone that's at an airport, someone that's in a data center, asking these AI agents or chatbots or whatever it may be, where do I find this store? How do I get to this gate at my terminal? How do I fix this pipe in the data center to make it working better? So it's just really crazy that my first experience in the industry kind of was GTC, and it really was like an illustrator for what we're seeing happening in the greater market now. So it really was cool, and I'm very excited to now be here at the end of season 3 and everything I've learned from all our different guests and kind of understand more so the back end of what exactly was powering what I was looking at.
Yeah, I think that that's such a great illustration of being able to see where the technology is going, especially for you, again, kind of tying back to GTC, because everything kind of culminates in that, in where I know we had a conversation even with Data Monsters and talking about the AI avatar. That was a huge thing. But then again, you're seeing it at GTC take place, in where Derek is the AI avatar. And it's like a mind-blowing experience, in where you're seeing all these things that sometimes you think you can only kind of even just dream of come to life through this different types of technology. And I feel like that's the importance of what PNY and what NVIDIA is doing, in where we're truly pushing the boundaries of what you could dream to be possible nowadays.
Yeah, and I absolutely loved that episode we did with Data Monsters and Smart Spatial. I had so much fun on that episode. I think one, because they're absolute geniuses. They're experts at their craft. They're experts in their field. But also I loved that they acknowledged the fact of this is what people dreamed of years ago. That we never thought that this was possible. And now that we dreamed of A and we've hit it, now we're dreaming of B. Like, when are we going to hit that? And what are we going to do with that? So learning about these digital twins that they're creating, and not only can we create this digital twin quicker and more efficiently and more true to life because of the Blackwell products, but you can also now do stuff with it that you couldn't do before, like what our demo was at GTC of I can talk to Avatar Derek and tell him where to take me in this data center digital twin. And like that, again, it's just doing it. And it's really interesting as well what they were talking about of how they see this throughout the greater industry and throughout really the greater world of it's not just at, tech events. It's not just at NVIDIA's GTC event, which is the culmination of the best of the best of the best technology. It's also at your everyday places, your everyday market verticals that just need something that can accelerate and optimize their work. Again, like airports, retail, whatever it may be. So I really loved that episode, and I think it was really interesting to see how, we did this at GTC, and it's this awesome, super advanced thing, but it's not limited to just the tech sphere. You can have something like this anywhere, and we're seeing it more and more. So I thought that was a really interesting episode.
Yeah, I think that's really important, because when we're talking about I think it was a conversation that we had with Chuck talking about IGX Orin at the edge and how we can really use that and take it into the aspect of like small businesses and what people can do when it comes to security measures, or just having a station that is right next to you and being able to implement that for smaller businesses. I feel like that's really important because, again, PNY and NVIDIA, we're touching the larger scope of data centers and professional visualization on that side. But when it comes to being right at the edge, that was a really cool conversation that we had, and where it's being used in all these everyday instances. And then one of the examples that, again, I love was the example of being able to use specific glasses and goggles, so that way, people who, doctors who are doing heart surgery, they can see that you may either have like a blood clot on a certain artery, or if there's healthy blood flowing, then this can be a red line or green line, and if it's blocked by something, it's a red line. So I feel like using AI in all these different ways are just examples in where people may not necessarily know on how AI is pushing these boundaries in these ways.
I really like how you brought up the point that while PNY and NVIDIA are working with, enterprises, data centers, professionals at a much larger scale, we also still are working with those small businesses or those one-on-one professionals. And I think this is an interesting point and an interesting thread that has been throughout this whole season, is kind of how, and I think you mentioned this in our last episode, how we're working to lower the barrier to entry. And if you look at all these different areas, it's the same idea. So we have 2 new small form factor GPUs that just launched that are within the Blackwell family. We have DGX Spark that launched this year. And we also have, as you were just saying, IGX Orin that's within small businesses, applies to them. It's right there at the edge with them. So I think it's really interesting and cool that while the technology is getting more advanced and more powerful, we're seeing more people enter the space. And I think this was something we talked about last episode, of how more professionals, or maybe it's even just more students that are interested in the world, can get into it, and they can learn, and they can start fine-tuning. They can start creating their own AI models. They can start using NVIDIA software, like NVIDIA Blueprints, to start creating new things. So I think it's really cool that as we advance in the space, we're also trying to bring more people with us and get more people involved. And I think it's going to be really interesting to see maybe in the next 5 years what happens with having even more professionals in.
Yeah, I think that's an important point as we think forward to season 4 and what could be possible. Because again, I know as we're finishing up season 3, we spoke about the launch of the DGX Spark. And I think that that's something that we've touched on very lightly, but I feel like there's so much massive potential to really understand what the possibilities of this very small form factor workstation and what it can actually do, especially when it comes to training different models. Again, for students, it can be used in all these different types of fields, different markets. So I'm really interested to see on how that may shape the future. And again, even being able to double it up and add 2 of them together, it just further enhances what you can actually do.
Yeah, I think it's going to be really interesting to see, because we kind of had this phase where it's, okay, now we're ingraining AI into everything that professionals do. And now we're kind of at that point where like everybody's getting access to AI. It's not as few and far between anymore. As we've said on a previous episode, we have coworkers here at PNY that are creating their own AI bots and whatever else they work on that I'm not even sure of. But we have everybody now getting access to AI, and everybody now getting access to advanced models and all of these things. And then you put something like DGX Spark in the mix of this little box that can go with you wherever. It can go on the go with you. It can sit on your desk. It can sit at a coffee shop with you. And you can do all of that. And you can do so much more than ever imagined. So I think it's going to transition us into this next phase of everybody has AI, but what will you do with it? And what are you going to create? And what are we going to see come of professionals and the greater market, I guess, of what's going to be the next thing,
Yeah. But yeah, I know that we spoke on this in the past, and where NVIDIA NIMs help to lower that barrier to entry, and where they're pre-trained large language models. That way you can implement them in different things like chatbots or different servers, or being able to help when it comes to content creation. This again just helps to lower the barrier to entry, and again, paired with these GPUs that we're providing to the world, I feel like that's truly in where people are going to slowly start to see that, like, okay, I am using AI in the everyday space, and whether it's like a chat GPT or whatever that looks like on the side, but to be able to learn and train your own, I feel like that is what's taking it to the next level.
Yeah, I agree, because if you think of it that way, say you give me a DGX Spark, an NVIDIA DGX Spark, and I go on and I download an NVIDIA NIM for a chat bot that's trained to know everything about PNY technologies. I can create my own little assistant for work, and then what can I do? It's going to free me up all the time to do more podcast episodes, more content creation, more scripting, whatever it may be. So I think you're right. If that's that next phase of, yes, we use it very casually and every day of ChatGPT, Copilot, Gemini, whatever it may be, for the one-off little things. But what's going to happen when more professionals are empowered to start creating the AI that's helping them, and start creating these agents and bots and assistants to help them with their work? I feel like it's going to be very interesting in the next couple of years, and definitely on the next season of the podcast to see where we're at then and what's happening in the industry. Yeah,
because again, you can tailor that to your specific workflow, because again, my workflow may look different than yours, may look different than, some of the people on our content creation team, and where they're truly focused on either the editing or the AI 3D model side of things, in where that's just not my workflow. But because they're using AI and NVIDIA technology in their own personal way, that is, again, what's going to be able to boost the productivity of a team overall.
Yeah. And it seems like NVIDIA, with their product launches and everything this year, it seems like everything has kind of been with that idea in mind of boosting team productivity, or at least organization enterprise productivity. Because even with something like NVIDIA MIG, where you can take one GPU and partition it up to 7 instances with its own compute cores, its own tensor cores, everything. And each person can work off that allocated section and do their own thing. So it seems like everything is moving in the direction of making it more accessible. They're at least making advanced high power solutions more accessible to professionals and expanding access.
Yeah. And then again, the same thing when it comes to the software side, when we were talking about like NVIDIA Omniverse, and where multiple people can work in the same environment, especially when you're talking about different markets like AECO, where you're trying to work on a building and someone can be working on the ground level while someone else is working on the lighting and all these different factors. So again, trying to remove the barrier to entry or lower that barrier to entry. Yeah, so you're really driving that team productivity, because, you're truly making it so that way the team can flow and you can get a lot of work done in a much smoother pace.
They can work together, which is awesome. Yeah, it definitely does increase teamwork and everyone working together. And, I know we're not all working on the NVIDIA RTX Pro Blackwell products. Maybe one day.
Maybe.
But our team does work ourselves on a lot of the virtual production, which I know is something you've mentioned you wanted to talk more about on this podcast. Is that something you're hoping to get into next season maybe?
Yeah, I would love to talk a little bit more about that, because again, we focus so much on content creation from our day-to-day tasks, whether it's recording, shooting, planning videos, scripts, all of the above. So when it comes to that production field, I feel like there's so much to talk about, because we're not only being ingrained in it and where we're doing it, we're learning and working off of the products that can enhance what we're doing in our workflows. So I would love to talk a little bit more about that. Maybe we can have some partners that truly focus in that maybe media and entertainment field. We can kind of talk to them about it and kind of get their takes, especially from either production companies' point of view or just another partner's point of view. I would love to dive a little bit deeper into that. But what about for you?
Yeah, next season, I'm really hoping, honestly, to talk more about and explore more of the physical AI. I know that was one of the things that Jensen mentioned way back when, it feels like, in his keynote of talking about the next stage is physical AI, so robots walking the streets amongst us. Seeing if that comes to fruition, this idea of physical AI being just ingrained in our everyday world and seeing how PNY can be a part of that. I'm really intrigued to see how quickly we come on the cusp of the physical AI chapter.
Yeah, I really like that too, because I remember even the conversation with Sama in reference to GTC, we were talking about how Jensen has little Wally. Maybe we can get a Wally for our office or something.
Oh my gosh, what was his name? Bluey.
Bluey. Was it Bluey?
Yeah.
Okay, it was Bluey. Yeah, I would love to have something like that, just not only just for myself, just to look at it and be like, oh, that's so cool. But at the same time, like, just to see the advancements of what the AI can actually do. And, it's different to have it just sit there and stand around looking cool, but to be able to interact and for you to tell it to do different things, it's as if it can, it's learning based off its environment, which is really cool. So,
Jensen, just let us borrow Bluey.
Let's just borrow him.
Send him to PNY HQ for a day or two. It could be our 30th episode wrap up present. Right?
Exactly. Yeah. Why not? We are on our 30th episode. This is the last episode for the season. Do you have any final thoughts as we wrap things up?
Excited for next season, and I hope we can have Bluey on as a guest.
Yes, I'm excited for that. Episode 31 featuring Bluey.
Yes.
My final thoughts are, I feel like our podcast episodes have been great so far, and I'm looking forward to the future of what we're going to be doing and what we're going to be showing off. That wraps up our final episode of season 3. Thank you guys for watching and staying tuned. If you guys aren't already tuned in, make sure you tune in on our YouTube channel, and you can also find us at PNY Pro on all social media accounts. That's it for this episode, and we'll see you in the next season.